Good evening, family. This is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope everybody is doing well this evening. Check in and let us know where you're hailing from. If you hear noise, that's because I have my porch light on, and I have the windows open so that the breeze can come in and I can just feel the coolness of the evening air. So, this is Dr. Kia Pruitt, and we are talking about how ladies value themselves. I feel that is so important, and I know that it's so important to discuss having high value, a high regard for yourself as a lady, as being God essence, as being the female expression of God. So a lady has value and she must value herself. That means she regards herself. She has a high amount of respect for herself. She cares about herself and she thinks highly of herself. And because she thinks highly of herself, she sets high standards for her life, for her thoughts, her feelings, her decisions, everything that she does, she sets in high regard. So a lady regards herself very, very highly. And when she does this, people in the world will also regard her because how you feel about yourself is what you project into the world. And that's important to note because oftentimes people complain about what their reality is, but everything we experience, we've called to ourselves. And when you realize that you are the guardian of your own life, or you are, I should say, the captain of your life, meaning you're responsible for your life choices, you're responsible for your experiences, then you realize that anything that you're going through right now, usually you've called to yourself. Now, I'm not talking about things that have happened to you haphazardly, or maybe when you were a child, things you could not control. But every single thing that we're experiencing, we can control, even if we don't like it, because we can decide to judge it and say, I don't like this, and now I'm going to change it. So let's get back to the topic. A lady values herself. She respects herself. She has high regard for who she is. And why does she have high regard for who she is? Because the woman represents the conduit through which all life comes. The woman is the portal. Her womb is the portal between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. That is an amazing, amazing specimen to be able to testify that I am a portal, a gateway between source and the physical realm. And with that type of high honor comes a high level of responsibility. So we're going to talk about that level of responsibility. You are amazing as ladies. You are beautiful specimens of the Most High. You were the ones that were selected to bring forth life. And even if for some reason you decide not to bring forth life, your energy is so beautiful and so sweet and so amazing that you bless the whole planet with your existence. In fact, men feed off your energy. Men love being in the presence of a lady. Men absorb your energy and they feel good about themselves just by being in your presence. Why? Because you are the female expression of God. That's why they call ladies goddesses, goddess. That means you are the essence of God. You have the characteristics of God. You are the very nature, all of the juiciness of God, the love, the kindness, the sweetness, the gentleness, the forgiveness, the nurturing that comes from source is embodied in you as a lady. And this is why men love women. Some men love women so much that they emulate women. But for the most part, men love women so much that not only do they recognize they came from the womb, but they do everything in their power to climb right back up in that womb through you as a lady, through intercourse. So the woman represents the portal between source and the physical realm. That's very symbolic, but it's not just a symbolism and a representation, but it's exactly who you are. You are the portal between source, between God, the spiritual realm, and the physical realm. Ladies, you are amazing. You are magnificent. You are beautiful. You represent life. You are the female expression of God. And isn't it beautiful that when God, if you are from one of the Abrahamic religions, decided that his son would come through a portal, he could have allowed his son to just manifest or materialize, but he allowed the son to come through the gateway, the portal of life, to experience life here on earth as a human being. So now, being that portal, or that representation between source and the physical realm means that we have not only a high honor, ladies, but we have a high level of responsibility. You were chosen to bring forth life, to be the conduit. That means you're responsible to guard your energy, to guard your womb, to guard your mind, your heart, and everything that you are. You're responsible for making sure that it stays sacred. Now, the heart is so important because if you realize or remember the scripture, I think it might have been in First Kings. I just know it was Solomon who said, above all else, guard your heart, because out of your heart flows the issues of life. And another way you say that was the King James Version. But another way you say that is, above all else, guard your heart, protect your heart, not only your heart, and some interpretations means your mind, your heart, your mind, your essence. Protect it with everything you have, because your heart and your essence are the wellspring of life. This is how amazing you are as a woman. You represent the portal between source and the physical realm. Your womb is the portal through which all life comes. And not only that, but ladies, you are the ones who decide which genes go into the future. Hear me out. You decide which genetics, which bloodline comes through that portal and go into the future. As such, you must guard your life. You must guard and protect your womb. You must value your womb as being very sacred, as being something that must be venerated, regarded, respected, even worshiped in a way. And what I mean by that is adored, tended to. Your womb, your body, your essence, your energy is so sacred, is so special to God, to the Most High, that the source or God, the creator, made sure that you would be the one who would be in control of which genes go into the future. As such, you must be very mindful who you give your energy to. You must be very mindful who you grant audience to, who you allow to come into your space, in your physical space and in your yoni space, or in your womb, because your womb is very, very sacred. Your womb carries life. Your womb carries all that genetic information that will be contained into a whole human or a spiritual being that will come through your portal and have a physical experience. So as such, ladies, you must realize that you are goddess. You are God incarnate. You are God in flesh. And I don't mean that in a sacrilegious way. I mean that you are the female embodiment of God. That's why they call you goddess. Now, a lot of women don't have a high regard for themselves, because in this society, we've done a lot, or the powers that be have done a lot to demonize women, a lot to make women act like monsters, or they've done a lot to make us forget how amazing and special we are. They've done a lot to make us embody our masculine nature. So we all have a feminine side of us and a masculine side of us, both male and female. We all have masculine traits and feminine traits, but the society and the powers that be in which we live have made it so that we operate in the masculine so much we forget how amazing we are. We forget that we are a representation of God. You know, another reason why we forget? Because we don't have female expressions of God like we once had. So it used to be a time when it wasn't just a time when you just spoke of God as being masculine. In fact, in some religions and some walks of life, when they talk about source, they'll say Father, Mother, God. And when you think about Abrahamic religions, although we talk about God as He, in the Catholic tradition, they venerate or they have a high regard for Mary, the mother of the Christ. The mother of Christ, she gave birth to the most amazing master, teacher, guardian, ascended master that have ever walked the planet. So Mary is venerated, she's regarded, she's respected, she's lauded in the Catholic tradition. And in many other traditions, especially when you look at the Sumerian texts, they venerated or they respected the female principle, the feminine expression of God. And even in the Sumerian text, we had who? We had Asar, who was the masculine expression of God, Aset, who is the feminine expression of God, and Heru, Asar, Aset, Heru. But they don't talk about that any longer in our tradition. Asar, Aset, Heru. And then the Greek version of that was Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Father being Osiris, Isis being the feminine or the woman or mother, and Horus being the baby or like Jesus or Heru. And isn't it something? The way the powers that were, because we know that they're being dismantled, demonized Isis. In fact, they came up with a whole terroristic group that they named ISIL and ISIS in order to demonize the feminine expression of God. This is how much they have tried to get us out of our own nature. They tried to get us to act unseemly, to be viewed as demonic, as terrorists. And then they started these programs on television where they showed women being very hateful and spiteful and mean towards each other, fighting each other, cursing each other, yelling out each other. And they pushed this agenda telling and teaching women that you don't need a man, that you can do everything on your own in order for us to operate in our masculine principle. But we are rejecting that. Because ladies who have a high regard for themselves and that value themselves understand internally and overstand that we are amazing as being the feminine expression of God, and we are amazing as coming together in an embodiment or as one specimen when we unite in matrimony or in covenant or in relations with the masculine principle of God. Because in order to create a child, you have to have father and mother. So again, you as the woman, you are the one who will determine which seeds come into the future. So you are over the human genome. You are responsible for the human genome. You not only carry all that genetic information inside your body, inside your womb, and feed that genetic information or the human genome and nurture it, but when you bring forth that life, you nurse the baby, you take care of the baby, and you are the first teacher of the baby. You are amazing, ladies. So that's for the ladies that decide to bring forth life. Some ladies won't bring forth that type of life, but you will always bring forth life, whether it's symbolic or it's literal, because just your very energy uplifts society. Society cannot progress any further than its women. That is a traditional saying. Society does not progress much higher than the women. So if you want to see a society that's progressing, a society that's full of love, a society that's booming and growing, a society that has community, it is because the woman has done a phenomenal job of being highly selective of the seed that she allows to enter into the world. That means she's careful who she lays down with. She's careful who she mingles with her bloodline. And that woman has done a phenomenal job of teaching the seeds that she brings into the universe. So I know that we live in a time where everybody's just laying with everybody and everybody's just having, casual relations. But when you are concerned about your bloodline and you're concerned about the seed that will enter into the world and go into the future, then you would be mindful about who you lay down with. I know we live in a free society and everybody wants to be free and sexually free and do whatever they want to do. And I get it. But freedom is not free. Freedom comes with responsibility. Okay. When you are free, sometimes, and you're free to do whatever you want, it comes with consequences. So use your liberties to be wise. Use your liberties to be mindful of who you give your energy to. And this is why traditionally and historically, ladies have been told, keep your legs closed until it's time to come together and covenant to bring forth life. Covenant, marriage, matrimony, or however your tradition teaches you to come together as a couple. So we call it covenant. Some people call it marriage. You have to be very mindful because it is the job of a man to spread his seed. So a man will do anything he can to get a lady to say yes, to open up herself to him. He's trying to perpetuate his seed. Okay. So he is the master, as my eldest son would say. He is the master of convincing a lady to open up herself to him. He has learned from the time he was a child. He studies through trials and error. He listens to different elders. He watches movies. He listens to his internal nature. He will do everything he can. And this is why you must regard yourself, ladies, as being so amazing, so venerated, so spiritual, so sacred that you don't just allow anybody to come between your legs and enter your portal. Because every seed is not supposed to come into certain dynasties or into certain bloodlines. I know that's not something that's very popular. But you get to determine which genes go into the future. So you have to be the ones that take that responsibility very, very seriously. Not just about how your seed, which seed progresses into the future, but to whom you grant audience, to whom you give your energy. Have you ever seen a man that has a lot of women and a lot of female experiences? A man that's been around a lot of women, that has a lot of women, that has had a lot of relations with women, he walks differently. He walks with his shoulders up, his chest out, his head up, and he generally feels good about himself because he's had the opportunity and the blessing to absorb the energy of a woman. And the more energy he absorbs, the more empowered he becomes, the more, the stronger he becomes. And men are so wise and so smart that they will use the energy that they get from your womb and your yoni to enrich themselves and to become creative and to create good businesses and to make money. Your energy is what helps them create. So be mindful that you're very, very selective to whom you grant your energy. Stop having sex in relations with every man that comes along. Ladies, regard your womb more than that, higher than that. Because a man is going to absorb your energy. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to say, you gave it to me. And he will do everything he can to talk you into it. He'll say, you're not a virgin. You've been married before. You've had relations before. You've had children before. And this is why we tell ladies, don't date. Dating does not serve the best interest of a lady. Now, for commoners or for people who just want to give their energy out haphazardly, date. For those who aren't mindful of their energy, aren't mindful of their womb space, don't care about the legacy, are not concerned about the bloodline, you do what you do. But for ladies, for the elegant among us, for those of us who are not common, but we have high regard for our bloodline, high regard for our genetics, high regard for our legacy, we're very mindful who we give our energy to. We're very mindful who we open up our portal to. Every man is not worthy of entering into the sacred space. Okay, so we have to be very careful and mindful. Now, this is why traditionally you had a father to protect the daughter and to protect the ladies. The father and the brothers of the mother or the uncles would protect the ladies. In times past, a man couldn't just approach a woman. Are you kidding me? A woman is so sacred, so special, so pure, so holy, so amazing that men could not just approach her. Men could not just go up to her and ask for her number. Men could not just go up to a lady and ask her out on a date. He had to go to her covering, her protector, her shield, her father, her uncle. And if the uncles weren't present and the father wasn't present, her brothers. But now everybody's thrown together. In the schools, you have the male and female together. You in the workplace, you have men and women together. In the market, you have men and women together. And when you mix the feminine expression of God and the masculine expression of God, or the man and the woman, you're going to get people having relations. And that's wonderful and it's amazing. However, children that come into the world need a covering, a proper covering. They need resources and they need proper instruction, which is why traditionally we had order, we had discipline and structures around who were able or allowed to enter into covenant. So even in some cultures today, in a Middle Eastern culture, some African cultures, and even some cultures in America, if you are Muslim, the men and women stay separate. They're not allowed to mingle because the woman is too sacred. Her energy is too precious. This is why they didn't allow women to go working out or go into war or go out to work hard, strenuous jobs, because your energy is sacred. That energy needs to be tended to, watered, nurtured, loved, adored, doted upon, because you give life. Not only do you give physical life through your womb space, through your portal, but you give life to men. You give life to women just by the very essence of who you are. Have you ever seen a beautiful woman walk past and her fragrance turn your head? The way she eloquently or elegantly walks and sashays past you, catches your eye. Before you know it, sometimes you can't even help yourself. Just her scent, just her fragrance, just her essence, just her energy makes you turn towards her because she's so beautiful. Even if her aesthetics aren't necessarily the highest level of beauty, but her energy, her joy, her juiciness, her pleasantness, the sweetness that comes from her draws your attention and brings you to her. It attracts you to her. That's because you are the female expressions of God. You are Isis and Offset embodied in God. When you think of Galatians, it talks about the fruit of the Spirit, the evidence of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is the female expression of God, the evidence of God, the essence of God living in you: gentleness, love, goodness, long suffering, meekness, patience, kindness. That is the feminine expression of God, the essence of God that Galatians talks about, how we all should embody that. Where a woman that has fully come into her feminine expression of God, fully come into herself as being God essence, exhibits those nurturing characteristics. So she is responsible for the human genome. She is the one who uplifts the emotions of people around her. She brings up the spirit of her husband. She brings up the spirit of her children. She is the one who most people in the community look to for exuberating or exuding love, grace, beauty. She has such a high level of responsibility because of the honor that she brings society. Now, once upon a time, we didn't just have masculine expressions of God. We actually had female, what do you call it? Female, I don't want to call it idols because, we don't believe in idols, but artifacts. We have feminine expressions of God, artifacts that looked like goddess. And it just was the embodiment of God expressed as a female. But you have to know the story. So when you study anthropology, which I studied just a little bit of anthropology when I was in undergrad school, it was a part of my social science curriculum. So I created my own curriculum: social sciences, anthropology, sociology, psychology, economics, and political science, all in one. It was an interdisciplinary bachelor's degree. So when you study anthropology, you study different cultures in even ancient societies. So in ancient societies and ancient cultures, we actually had feminine expressions of God. We actually had artifacts and monuments and little clay sculptures of God being a female expression of God. And I often say one of the reasons why women don't necessarily are not necessarily in tune with the feminine part of them, the soft part of them, the gracious, gentle part of them, is because we don't get to see it. We don't see a feminine expression of God. We see God as male. And when you see God as male, being a God of war, being a conqueror, having dominion and dominance, and that's the most part that you see of God or you hear of God in Abrahamic religions or even in traditions and stories and history, then you're not taught to lean on and cultivate that other side of you, the feminine side of you. But we used to have both masculine and feminine expressions of God. As a matter of fact, there are books that are written about it. And I'll do another video. I've done videos about this when God was a woman. And I don't want, again, that's not sacrilegious. I'm saying when people actually saw God as both masculine and feminine. Okay. So we used to have in certain cultures those molded sculptures of females that were goddesses. And so they were venerated, they were respected, they were regarded, just like the masculine principle of God. But what happened, and this was in almost, I think they said probably like most of the earth, from my readings, if I recall, most of the earth had both masculine and female principles of God. But then you had the Aryans that came out of the mountains. They were a warrior, barbaric group of people or males that came out of the mountains. And when they came out and dominated and took over many cultures and decimated the cultures, they decimated the female expressions of God. They decimated those cultures, those sculptures that look like the female expression, the feminine gods, the goddesses. They decimated them. And being such a barbaric group, they didn't necessarily have a veneration or love or respect for women or regard for women. So they not only decimated the female gods, but they also killed a lot of the women. Now, you know, they weren't natural if they killed the women. Some people even question whether or not these so-called Aryans that came out of the Caucasus Mountains, some of them, they're wondering if they were even fully human. They may have been either partially something else other than human or fully something else that came out of the mountains and decimated the female goddesses and killed the women or did very heinous things to the women. And some recollections or some accounts say that they put the women on an island and left them there to die. And that's where we came up with the word lesbian, because some of them were put on Lesbos Island. And so the women had to fend for themselves. So again, when you know history and you study anthropology and you actually see the female sculptures, it brings you such an amazing amount of peace and joy and reverence to know that some culture regarded you as special. And when you see that, then it puts in you or sparks in you a high regard for yourself as being a woman, a lady, a feminine expression of God. Now, in Sumerian texts or in ancient texts, we learn about or we hear about Enki and Enlil being Anunnaki who came from planet Nibiru to come to Earth. You heard of Enki and Enlil, right? Enki and Enlil knew that there was gold on the planet. And so what they did was they took the beings that were here. Some people say this was the precursor to humans. They took us or our ancestors that were here on earth, and they forced us to mine gold on their behalf. But they weren't mining gold fast enough. So Enki and Enlil came up with this grand idea to actually take some of their genetics and made it with those humans or whatever the beings were there and create a specimen that can mine gold very, very quickly. So look up Enki and Enlil. Again, those were Anunnaki who came from, I think, from the planet Nibiru. So you hear about them, but you don't hear about their sister, Nimna, Ninserheg, Nimna, who was the sister of Enki and Enlil, was actually the mastermind behind a project to create or recreate humans on the planet. So some accounts say she actually took her genetics along with Enki and Enlil's genetics and created this current human race that we have right now. And then you don't have to believe the story. I'm just telling you what the story says. Some say she actually put the human beings into her own womb. Nimna. Say her name. They won't say her name because they don't want you to have a female expression of God, of a creator. A creator? You're a creator. I'm a creator. The scripture says you are gods. You're creators. You can bring forth life. You can manifest. You bring forth life as a female and as a male, right? He sparks the egg. He gives us life. We carry it in our womb, in our portal, and then the baby comes through our gateway. So you're a creator. They'll talk about masculine creators, but they forgot Nimna. Many people have said that Nimna has returned. Hello, Sister Mariana. You were wondering about me yesterday. Here I am. As an aside, I'm back on YouTube, Dr. Kia Pruitt, and I'm able to monetize now. So this is my third or fourth channel. My other ones were taken down, but this one, thank God, it passed all the regulations and investigations. So I am on YouTube and I'm streaming on Rumble right now, Facebook and Twitter. So Nimna, they say has returned. Because when Enki and Enlil allegedly created the humans that are presently on Earth, and that's just if you believe in the Anunnaki story, she was present then, but they created humans. They weren't supposed, when they came here, according to the Sumerian text, I'm not saying that's true, they came without the approval of the council, well, you can call them galactic council, you can call them angelic council. They came here and created humans to mine gold because they needed to take gold back to Nibiru, their planet, to heal the atmosphere, according to the ancient Sumerian text. That text predates the Bible. So when you study anthropology, you'll look at different texts. You look at Sumerian texts. You look at what do you look at? Artifacts. You look at fossils and those type of things, and you put the piece of the puzzle together. So many people say that history says that because they came here and they created the humans to mine the gold so that they can heal their planet without the approval of the council, then their father, Anu, the Anunnakis, the father of Nimsarhag or Nimna and Enki and Enlil, Anu became very angry. And he, according to Sumerian text, and the council decided to cause a great flood to get rid of the humans because they were not supposed to do anything without the approval of the council. But of course, Enki or Enlil, I can't remember which one because the stories switch around. I think it was Enki, decided that he loved his creation so much that he saved them. And that's where you get the stories of the ark, Noah's ark and the flood. And you get stories that actually predate Noah's allegedly ark and the flood. The deluge is what they call it in ancient Sumerian texts. So if that is the case, then what happened was they decided to save a part of the human race and teach the humans language, culture, religion, so to speak. And I'm not going to even get into which one is allegedly Yahweh and how it's supposed to be worshiped. You have to know the ancient Sumerian text because that's very controversial. And I'm not here to be controversial. I'm here to inspire women to have a high regard for ourselves, to love ourselves and have high respect for ourselves, to esteem ourselves as being the feminine expression of God, to value ourselves as having the energy of God and the essence of God. So they spared a remnant of the humans and taught the humans. And then they went back to the planet, Nibiru. And they had to follow their father because the father is the protector. The father's the one who gives the order. The father's the leader. The father said, come back. So they had to go back. And they left us down here and said, you know what? Now they have God's genetics in them. They have our galactic genetics. They have our ancient genetics in them. So now they're going to ascend to their highest self. We're going to leave them down here so that they can learn certain things and they could have certain experiences, and they will one day become like gods. And so we did that. We started learning certain things. We started teaching each certain things. We started ascending to our higher selves. We started becoming masters. And that's where you get the Tower of Babylon. We became so amazing that we said, you know what? We want to reach the heavens. We want to find out where those angelic or galactic beings went. So we actually created the Tower of Babylon. And because of that, what we did is we said, you know, we're going to be so amazing. We're going to create this tower and we're going to ascend to the higher realms. But Enki and Enlil or one of the other decided, or either the council decided, nope, it's not time for them to do that. We're not going to allow it. So they destroyed the Tower of Babylon. They confused us, confused our languages. Now, I don't know if it was one of them or another galactic being per se. But we were so amazing that we were reaching higher realms, like literally, spiritually and literally. So it was determined by the council that we would stay here, we would learn some things, we would learn how to get along, we would mate, and we would ascend to our highest selves through experiences, through culture, through even religion, because religion traditionally meant tie back to law and reason, tie back to law and reason. So we were taught how to create laws, or we taught ourselves, and then Enki and Enlil would come back to teach us, as well as Nimna, the woman, the female. So after they came to teach us, then they would go back. They would come, and they would go back. And remember, we always talk about, you hear people talk about portals and astrology, and how we talked about the Lion's Gate in August. And we talked about how when things are aligned, when Orion and different planets are in alignment, it creates a portal, through which the angelic beings or the galactic beings come from different planets onto the Earth. So that actually happened. And many of the Dogon, the ancient Dogon tribes, which were a part of Africa, and the ancient indigenous tribes in America and all over the planet, spoke of these angelic or galactic beings coming back and forth, traveling from different planets. So they would travel and teach us, and then go back, travel and help us do some things, and then go back. But they decided, leave them alone, they'll ascend in their own time. But while we were here learning and figuring things out, you had a group of malevolent beings. So I call them malevolent, but that's judging them, because it is what it is. So just for the sake of argument, you had benevolent beings, beings that loved us, beings that were very appreciative of this beautiful specimen that we are as humans here. And then you had some that were very jealous of us, very angry, because not only were we so amazing that we had the genetics of these angelic beings, but we also had the freedom of choice. We could choose, we could create. We weren't just told what to do. We actually could make decisions on our own. And certain beings did not appreciate that. They also saw us being here without the beings that help create us as being vulnerable. So some of these galactic or whatever other beings, some of them, what's that word they call the angels that fell from the sky? It starts with an N, I think. Somebody will tell me what it's called. It escapes me. But the Bible talks about these angelic beings that were upset and jealous about us, and the sons of God came to earth and mated with the daughters of men, the fallen angels. There's a name for them. So you had the fallen angels that saw us, that came and mated with the females that were here. You had the Dracons, the Draconians. You had, that's where Dracula comes from. You had the reptilians, and not all of them are bad, but or not all of them were malevolent, or not all of them had bad intentions for us humans, but they saw us as vulnerable, right? So they started doing things like harvesting certain parts of us, and steering us into the wrong direction, causing different programs, implementing certain programs into our psyche or in our reality, to cause the females to fight against the males so that we wouldn't produce. They cause us to be angry. They cause us to go to war. They cause us to have all of these negative emotions so that we can emit a psychic energy that we call loosh. So when you're angry, when you're fighting, when you're jealous, when you're hateful, when you're sad or extremely sad, and you have these so-called negative emotions, when you're confused, when you're terrified or terrorized, you emit a psychic energy from your body called loosh. And this energy is a traumatic energy that comes from you, that emanates from your pores, comes from your body. This is psychic. It's something you cannot necessarily see, but you can feel it. You can experience it. And that loosh, that negative psychic energy that comes from trauma, is what these beings would eat and absorb. And I'm talking about the so-called malevolent beings. the draconians, the reptilians, and some of those beings that did not have our best interest at heart because they saw us as food. And that's why when you hear people talk about the New World order, they'll say, oh, we were just bottom feeders. We're just food for them, because they are not human. They don't have our best interest at heart. So the beings that enslave the planet are not human. Now, some of the human hybrids with whom these beings made it may have been put in place, but they're not human, or they're not fully human. These beings that enslaved the planet and controlled the planet. So when we were left here by Enki, Enlil, and Nimna, this is according to the Sumerian stories or the ancient stories, you had malevolent beings that came here, made it with us, took advantage of us, taught us different paradigms that were not godly or were not in our best interest, and caused all this warring, gender wars, fighting, battling, bloodshed. Why? Because they literally eat it and they absorb it through their pores or through their essence. Because these beings don't all eat through their mouths. Some of them do, but many of them eat psychically. So they left us here. They took advantage of us. They enslaved the entire planet. It's not just brown people or people with a high level of melanin that were enslaved. They did that to every single person on the planet. Literal enslavement, literal chains, and psychic, emotional, and physical chains we went through, and emotional chain slavery. But many people have said, I don't know if you've heard this, that Nimna has returned. Not only the creator, because you have many so-called creator gods or just creators or beings that create different specimens across different planets, and you have one source. We all come from source. Yes, we all have source living within us. However, there are different creators, allegedly, according to legend, that live all across the multiverse. And when we were left here to die, because they didn't want us to ascend to our highest selves. But Nimna, the female expression of God, has returned. That's why when you listen to certain podcasts, they will actually say the divine feminine has come back. Nimna has come back for her babies. Of course, God is back, and some of the angelic beings and galactic beings that want to help us. But Nimna, the female expression of God, has also returned. Nimna doesn't want her babies to be passed through the fire. Nimna doesn't want all of those things that we heard that Hollywood does and politician does to babies and to organs to happen anymore. Nimna and some of those other galactic beings, they have returned. They don't want to see that happen anymore. They are here to help us ascend, to come to our highest selves, to self-master, to come up to the level of Christ, to have a Christ consciousness like the Christ, the ascended master that came through the portal of Mary. They desire for us to reach our God selves, our highest selves in this new golden era. That's why you keep hearing people talk about gold. That's why they talked about corona as in crown. It literally means crown, as in your crown chakra, that part of you, that consciousness being awakened, ascending to your highest selves, to your highest level of consciousness. So Nimna has returned, as well as some of the other angelic beings. Do you see how amazing you are as beings, male and female? Specifically, I want to talk to the ladies. Do you see how amazing you are? That we actually had female expressions of God too, of goddess. Look at the word goddess, Goddess. God essence, God material, God quality, God expression. That's who you are. Again, you are the representation of that portal between source and the physical realm. Your womb is so sacred that it is the portal through which life comes. Your energy is so exuberant, so lovely, so amazing that men get joy and feed themselves just by being in your presence. As such, is very, very, very important that you guard your energy, that you protect your energy, that you surround yourself with loveliness, with beauty, with colors, with light, with sunlight. It's important that you meditate. It's important that you think about all the goodness that exists in your life. There's a scripture that says that you should actually think upon certain things. I'm going to see if I can find that for you. Philippians 4:4. This is a challenge to all of the ladies, everybody, but specifically the ladies. I'll say Philippians 4:8. Finally, my darlings, according to Paul, who wrote Philippians, whatever you find is true, anything that you can imagine that's honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of a good report, and even if there's any virtue, anything that you can think of that brings about praise, think on these things. Your mind should be focused on all the things that are lovely, all the things that are pure, all the things that are of good report, all the things that are virtuous, all the things that are of high praise and of a good report. Spend your time thinking upon those things, meditating upon those things, reflecting upon those things, ladies, and it will raise your vibrations. So we're talking about having high value. A lady values herself. She's protective of who she gives her energy to. She's protective of who she allows into her yoni space. She's protective of who she allows to give her a seed. And I know it's very challenging because we're out here on our own. So let me talk to the younger ladies for a minute, because I'm a woman of a certain age, and oftentimes I speak to us, and that's good. But let me talk to the younger women. Ladies, if you're a younger woman, you're a teenager, or you're under 25, make sure you stay under the covering of your father, your grandfather, your uncle, a spiritual leader. Not just you, young ladies, but the elder ladies need to do the same thing too, because they will protect you and shield you from the men who may not be deserving of you. They may not be prepared for you. They may not be ready to take care of you. They may not have what it takes to protect you. And even if they have everything that it takes, even if they are worthy, they still must be vetted. They still need to come under the inspection of your father, because your father has your best interests at heart, because your father and your elders are concerned about your bloodline. If you don't have that, a father, a brother, an uncle, or elder sons, that should be your last resort, because your sons, we don't want to give them too much responsibility if you have a father and a brother and an uncle. But male sons, they will protect you, and they can do the job as well, because men respect men. They respect the energy that comes from the man, and men know that when they encounter each other, there's always a potential for a physical threat. So you should always have a covering, even if it's a spiritual leader, an imam, a pastor, a spiritual head. He should be a man, because men respect men. Men know men. Men understand men. Men overstand men. And a man can vet a man. A man won't vet a man based on emotions. A man will vet a man based on his qualifications. Can you provide for her? Can you protect her? What is your bloodline? What is your blood type? Who are your people? Where do they come from? What is your legacy? What is your mission? What is the vision for your life? What is the mission and vision you have for my daughter? And is it in alignment with what I put into her, what I've taught her? That's what men are supposed to do. So when I was growing up, in my subculture, the small part of the culture that's within the American culture, or the spiritual culture in which I was growing, a man didn't approach ladies. He went to her father, he went to her uncle, her brother, her pastor. And even times before then, and even in ancient times, and right now, in Middle Eastern societies, you may not approach a woman unless now you're starting to try to act like the West. Women are too sacred. Their energy is too precious. They're too delicate and vulnerable. So you can't not just approach a woman in Middle Eastern culture. As a matter of fact, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove that you've been to school, that you stayed in school as a man, that you graduated from school, that you have a job, that you have a career, that you have a house, that you have a savings, that you have a legacy, and that you have virtue. And by virtue, I mean high values. Before you can even get to the woman, you have to have all that, and you still can't go to the woman. You go to the father or the woman's brother, the uncle, and they will make an arrangement and decide whether or not you're worthy enough for her. But you may not approach her. She's too sacred. This is how sacred we are, ladies. Many cultures and traditions still keep that way of life where men cannot just approach us. See, women are considered, according to some texts, the weaker vessel. That means that we're not able to fend off certain energies. We're not able to fight men. A lot of us can be persuaded. If men are really good at it, we'll find ourselves in compromising positions. And this is no judgment, because many of us are women of a certain age. We've been married. Some of us have had experiences, right? And so you know that if you're in a vulnerable position or you're in a compromising position, you can be easily persuaded. And that doesn't make the man a bad person. That just means that the conditions were such that you found yourself in a compromising position, or you allowed yourself to be in a compromising position. And when you're in compromising positions, you may end up bringing forth life before it's time, or with a person that cannot provide for you, or that has no intentions of entering into a covenant with you. In many cultures, in Middle Eastern cultures, if you don't have intentions to enter into a sacred covenant with somebody's daughter, with a man's daughter, you can't look upon her. You may not even gaze upon her. Women, ladies, this is how beautiful and amazing you are. This is how highly you're supposed to be revered and regarded, like an exquisite vase that is so elaborate, so amazing, so beautiful, so dynamic. You sit upon a shelf. That's when they used to talk about elevating women or treating her like a trophy. They kind of like, I don't know, use the word in a way that now we don't consider it to be exquisite, but you're so delicate and so beautiful and so perfect as an expensive vase that you're supposed to be held up in reverence and honored and just protected in a glass case so that no debris can touch you. And only certain eyes can even gaze upon you, because not all eyes can even enter the room of certain jewels, certain vases, certain specimens and artifacts. This is how the lady is reverenced in many cultures and used to be in our culture. You can't even look upon a lady in certain cultures. And this is why in many cultures, when I talked the other day about elegance and how to exude elegance, and we talked about shawls, we talked about gloves, and we talked about headdresses and different things that ladies would adorn themselves when they would go outside, because men were not supposed to freely look upon their flesh. That was reserved for their husbands, not even their hair. That was reserved only for the husband. This is how highly societies regarded women. You can't even look upon a woman unless you have an intent to marry her or to bring her under covenant. So in the Middle Eastern tradition, you have to have all of your ducks in a row. In ancient Greek societies, not only did you have to have everything in place, but you literally had to slay dragons. That means you had to literally delete certain whole beings or whole animals in order to prove that you were worthy enough to procreate with her and provide for her and protect her. This is a high level of responsibility now passed down to the women. And it's often too much for us to discern which man can fully provide for us and protect us. But ladies, as being the ones that are responsible for deciding which genetics will go into the future, you have to be cognizant of who you lay down with, because a man will lay down with you, absorb your energy, make himself feel good, use that energy to go make himself rich, to go get a good job, to go have a higher connection with God, and also use that energy to make himself a better man for that woman who made him prove himself to her. To that woman who had a covering that made him prove himself worthy. He will, because you gave it to him, because you offered yourself to him. Stop being a free offering. You are not a free will offering. You're not common. You're exquisite. You're the essence of God. You're beautiful. You give life. You carry life. You guard life. You decide which genetics can come into the future. And what I mean by which genetics, your body, because you carry the womb. You have the womb, yes, and you carry the seed. Your body will decide which one of the specimens that come from his body will live. Now it's up to you to decide which man is worthy enough for his seed to pass on. And this is why I need our families to get back to doing what you're supposed to do. Because we look at certain societies as being snooty. They're not. They're concerned about their legacy. They're concerned about their bloodline. Do you know it wasn't that long ago that in order to get married, you had to take a blood test? When I got married to my children's father, the husband of my youth, who passed last year, January 28, 2022, they were still doing blood tests in the 1980s in our small town. So I grew up in Cleveland, and then as a teenager, my mom moved us to Portsmouth, Ohio, a small town. And back in the 80s, you still had to take a blood test when you got your marriage license. You had to go get your marriage license, pay some money, but you had to go get a blood test first. And the reason why they did that is because they told you your blood type, and they told you whether or not you were anemic, and whether or not you had certain diseases, and whether or not your two blood types were a good match for each other. And it was up to you to decide what to do once they gave you the results of the blood test. But then you can make a conscious decision, an educated decision as to whether or not you wanted to bring forth life together. This is what responsible people do. Now, what I see happening today is people just live life haphazardly. No vision, no mission, no purpose. But one thing about me is I believe in living life on purpose. And if you haven't done it, it's okay. We're just going to fix it. And from here on out, we're going to live life on purpose. Everybody doesn't understand people who live on purpose. My mother put that in me from the time I was a child. Live on purpose. Be mindful of who you mix your seed with, your semen with, your blood with. So when you would take those blood tests, they would especially test people from so-called African American community, or people with from certain cultures, for different types of diseases that were prevalent in your bloodline. So people that look like me are predisposed to what's that blood disease? Anemia. And so if you had the trait, then you had to be very careful and make a decision as to whether or not you wanted to mate with or marry somebody else who had the trait. So you can either not have the trait, or you can have the trait, or you can just outright have the disease called sickle cell anemia. So I didn't have the trait, but I think some of my siblings had the trait, but not anemia. So when you have the trait, you got to be mindful, because if you do mate with somebody that have the trait, then your child could have the trait, or they could have the disease. And if you have the disease, you really have to be mindful who you mate with, because that person might not want to mate with somebody with the disease. Now, I know today they say don't discriminate, everybody's equal, and that's fine, that's cool, but that's why you need to know what your mission is, what your purpose is, what is your legacy, what is your bloodline like? What type of bloodline do you already have? Is it a royal bloodline? Is it a certain bloodline? Do you have a legacy that comes along with your bloodline? You need to learn this. You need to know it so you can perpetuate it, if that's important to you. So, ladies, you are the ones that determine whether or not the genes go into the future. So you have to be mindful who you lay down with. Be careful who you're mixing fluids with, who you bring into this reality. Be careful. Now, I believe in life. I am pro-life. So I'm saying be proactive. You don't make a decision once you have life living inside of you, according to Dr. Kia Pruitt, and say, hey, I didn't like him. He's not good for me. He's no good. That just speaks to how women don't need to be making these choices. We need fathers to start vetting. So what I would inspire, encourage women to do, if you don't have a good relationship with your dad, or a relationship at all, I would encourage you to go about building a relationship with your father. And even if you do have a good relationship with your dad, nurture it, water it. Your dad, your grandfather, your brothers, your uncles, because the world has taught us to hate men, to be apart from men. But what that has done is that has enabled women to bring forth children without a covering, without guidance, without protection, without discipline, and without structure. And I know about which I'm speaking because I work in the schools. And I see what you don't see because you're not in the schools. I've worked in schools in many different states. And I'm going to tell you, whenever you put the female and the male together, they're going to mate. So what do I see in middle school? And what do I see in high school? They're touching each other. Sometimes it's in the form of a hit, but then a hit turns into a caress, or holding hands, or swapping saliva and kissing and caressing and touching. And now we're hearing stories, even from bus drivers, of children actually performing fellatio and relations on the bus, in the hallways, under the stairs, in the closets, in the restrooms. Because anytime you put the two genders together, I don't care how much society says they hate each other, biology prevails. So it's best to keep them separate. And it's best to have a covering, because I can tell what's going on in our houses by looking at our children. They don't have structure. They don't have discipline. They see their mothers with a whole bunch of different men. I don't know what they see their fathers do. Some of them see their fathers doing things that are violent. Some of them have good representations of parents. Yes. And that brings me joy. I can see it in their behavior. I can see it in their countenance. I can see it from their energy. And then you have a lot of them who are angry, who are very extravagant, pig Latin, extravagant, touchy-feely. I see some young babies with tattoos all over their bodies, different type of piercings, coming in with tight clothes, crop tops, showing their navel, low-cut blouses. And I know they don't have a covering. They must not have a daddy at home. Because most fathers won't let their daughters show all their body to the world. We've got to do a better job. What is the legacy that you have or you desire to perpetuate? What is it that you want people to say about your bloodline, about your family? What is the word you want to have said about you when you, or if you decide to transition out of here and go into the higher realms? What do you want them to say about you, your people, the legacy you left? Think about that. I don't care if you're 15, you need to have a vision and a mission for your life. That is the job of your parents, to instill that within you. Parents, we've got to do a better job. Instead of letting children go out and play together, the sexes play together, we need to spend some time separating them and teach them rites of passages. This is what you do in order to become a lady. This is what you do in order to learn to become a man so that you can be a provider and a protector. As a lady, you protect your energy. As a lady, you keep your legs closed. As a lady, you remain modest and chaste. Have virtue, be pure. You will carry life one day, or you may carry life one day. Your energy is sacred. Be protective of your energy. You need lots of water. You need lots of fruits and vegetables. You need lots of rest. I'm not going to throw you out and tell you to get a job and you're just a child. I'm going to protect your energy. I'm not going to throw you out at 18 and tell you to fend for yourself and throw you out to the wolves, to all the hungry men who are looking to spread their seed on a non-suspecting, vulnerable young lady. No, I'm going to guard you and protect you. Instead of letting them go out and play and spend so much time, these children spend so much time on the phones that while I'm in the schools, I have a hard time keeping them from their phone. As soon as I turn my back, they want to pull out a phone. So what I've had to do is write referrals. If I see the phone, I'm going to write your name down. I'm going to call your parent. And your parents should have a high enough respect for me and for your education that, first of all, they should have told you before you walked out of the house that you're not allowed to have the phone in class. They're pulling out their phones. I don't care what grade, what kind of school, unless it's a college prep school. There's one college prep school, just one of all the schools I've been to, where the students actually are so conditioned that when they come in, they put their phones on in these little pockets on the wall, because these children have parents that have told them, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a professional, you're going to have high virtue, you're going to be somebody's wife one day, you're going to school to learn discipline, structure, and to learn your lessons. Their parents put that in them and we enforce it. But it's very challenging to enforce what you and I as parents have not put into them. So instead of letting them spend so much time in front of electronics, make them read a book. Do you know what I did when my children were babies? I read to them at night. I sang to them. I'm not a good singer. I sang to them at night. I read them a book. We said our prayers and I tucked them in. I didn't send them to bed, say, y'all go to bed. I took them. I walked them to bed. I tucked them in. I sang to them and read a book to them. And I did that all the way up through high school. And as they were getting older and older, I waited till they got to high school, about probably the 8th grade, middle school. And then they started reading the book. So then we started reading books together. And they had to read to each other and to me as a group together. We had family meetings and we had family readings. So when they were babies, I read to them. As they got up and started mature, they read to each other and to me. So make them get a book. Okay, so they know how to channel that sexual energy. Get a book, read a book. Have them to write an essay for you. That's what my mother did for us. That's what my children did, write essays. Cut out a newspaper article if you have newspapers. My mom, we still have newspapers back in the day. And when we were Muslim, we had something called the Balanian News. So my mom would cut out, stories from the Balanian News, and she would have the daily newspaper from the community, cut out inspiring stories and put them on the refrigerator. And when we came home, we had to read them and write an essay for her. We had to read books and write essays for her. That's on top of doing homework. We had 2 sets of Encyclopedia Britannica, and another one with pictures and colors. Can't remember the name, but that was my favorite one. But we had to read the encyclopedia, read the dictionary, write out definitions of dictionaries from A through Z, write essays. This is what kept our mind sharp and kept us from exploring early. Learning to be disciplined, structured, so that we didn't use all that energy to go out and try to do things like mate. Put a book in front of your child. Take away the electronics. Keep them busy. Tell them what your family, Tell them about your family tree. Tell them what your legacy is. Sit down and have family meetings. This is the vision for our family. This is the mission for our family. This is the mission statement for our family. Work it out together. Write a mission statement together with your family. Write a vision statement. I got a whole video on vision and mission statements. I'll bring that back out. Fathers, I can't tell you how to be a man. I just think it would be a wonderful thing, because I've seen my brother do it and I've seen other men do it, to sit your family down and have prayer together, Bible study together, study the Quran together. It doesn't have to be a long time. This puts into your family values, or sit down and talk about your family values, your legacy, what you expect of your bloodline, how you expect them to raise their children, what you intend to pass down to them, and put parameters around it. No smoking, no drinking, no wilding out. In order to get access to my assets, we don't have that. And those are whatever expectations you have, you need to pass that down to your children. You need to pass down expectations to them from the time they are babies, to let them know what they are allowed to do and are not allowed to do. We don't go out, we don't just go copulating with everybody. We don't go open up our legs to everybody. We do that under covenant. And that's after the elders have vetted. That's if you're concerned about your bloodline, if you're concerned about your legacy, your energy, your life force. So this is something, again, that has become the responsibility of the woman, the lady. But I implore you, stop giving your energy out so freely. Your energy is really, really amazing. It's doing great things for men. And men value the lady that he has to work for. Trust me. I'm not saying make him spend a whole lot of money. I'm saying take him to your father. Do you know I'm a woman of a certain age? Men don't just approach me haphazardly. They open doors for me. Why? Because I have a high level of regard for myself. They can see it in the way that I walk, the way that I stand, the way that I move, the way that I speak, the way that I carry myself, the way that I dress. It's a commanding of respect, because I know I'm amazing. I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm God essence. I'm a female embodiment of the Most High. I'm the female embodiment of Source. I have a legacy. I know our legacy. I know what my bloodline did. I know who we are. I know what we own. I know about the businesses my family owned. I know we don't have a legacy of slavery. I have a high level of pride because I know exactly who I am. So I command certain treatment just in my very essence. And these are the things that we need to pass down to our children. So when a man approaches me, he's very respectful. He's very kind. Unfortunately, he'll come and ask for my number. I don't want to say unfortunately, but back in the day, they would never do that. They would go straight to your pastor or your dad. But now, everybody's all easy peasy free. So they'll ask, but they'll ask respectfully for a number, or if they can give me their number. But they know not to ask me to come and just engage freely in sex. And even if they didn't know, I would just kindly decline, because my energy is too precious, too sacred. Even though I'm past childbearing age, my energy is very, very sacred, just like yours. Who you are is very, very special. So stop giving yourself so freely if you're doing that. If you're not, continue to guard yourself. And if a gentleman comes calling on you, it's up to you. But a very prudent thing to do would be to be kind, be gracious, and when you feel comfortable, which I think should be right away, pass them along to your father. No matter how old you are, to your spiritual covering. The women in the church when I was growing up, even as a woman of a certain age, even as a lady, any man that came calling on, I don't care if you were a 65-year-old woman, he needed to go to your pastor. He still to this day has to go to the pastor, and the pastor is evaluating him. He's talking to him, figuring out what is his mind like. How many times has he been married? How much money does he make? Or if he doesn't ask for an exact amount, what are you doing? Will you provide for her? What have you been doing with your life? And this is what I don't understand about people who would let somebody who's wasted, whether you're male or female, their best years making a whole bunch of crazy decisions. And now we're going to make babies together, or we're going to come together, especially if you made a whole bunch of bad decisions. And I was very intentional with my life. I'm not going to give you my energy because I have too much respect for myself. A high level regard for myself. But you can go talk to my pastor. You can go talk to my brother. My dad has passed. And as a matter of fact, my dad's right here with me right now. My dad was a Muslim. You can go talk to a man and he will vet you. Thank you. Know thyself says a woman is a natural healer. This is how amazing we are. She can stick her hand in the mud and cause flowers to bloom because of her very nature. That is amazing. Thank you, know thyself. I love that. So ladies, be careful. That means be mindful of your energy, of your yoni and your womb. Make sure you don't just give it away, because a man, if you offer it, he'll take it. Everybody likes an offering, and most people like things free, but do they respect it? And I'm telling you what I know. A man will thankfully bask in all your glory and absorb it to make himself better, and then go into the presence of the woman who's not going to give herself freely and work hard for her. So be mindful, value yourself, and know how amazing you are. Know that you are a natural healer. Know that you are the one that stands between source and the physical realm. You represent the portal between source, or God, the creator, and this physical realm. And your womb is the portal through which life comes. You are the one that's responsible for the genetics, deciding the genetics, that will go into the future. Why? Because we grant access to sex. We're the ones that give access to the womb. The man gives access to marriage. He asks for your hand in marriage, and it's up to you to say yes or no. But you're the one who he has to ask permission to enter into your yoni space. That's a high level of responsibility. It's a great honor, and there's only certain men that's worthy of that, and they should be vetted. Send them to your father and to the men of your life, whoever that is, your uncle, your brother, your spiritual guide. If you don't have any of that, your eldest son, somebody to help you vet. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I said something to inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. It's been my great pleasure to talk to you about how a lady values herself and encourage you to have a high value for you, to respect yourself, have a high level of regard for yourself, to care so much about your life, your energy, your mind, your thoughts, what else? Your behaviors. Be so concerned about that you're meticulous in everything that you do. Your thoughts are pure. Your ways are pure. Your body is pure. Your mind is pure. Your energy is cleansed. And you can look up different ways of how to cleanse your energy, your mind, your body, your yoni. And that's it, family. I don't see any questions. But if you do have questions, I will happily take them. I encourage you to please hit the like button or tap the like button on my YouTube channel, whether you're on my YouTube channel is Dr. Kia Pruitt, or you can you can touch the like button on Rumble, YouTube, or leave a comment under my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. Somebody said they would like to see me with Sarge. Yeah, I was on with Sarge only once. I need to get back to him. So, ladies, thank you so much. And gentlemen, the gentlemen who love us so, for listening. As you can tell, I am on a campaign to help women to bask in our God essence and to come back to ourselves if we've gotten away, and nurture our goddess, our God essence. Come back to the goddess, our goddess nature, nurture it, and have a high regard for ourselves. Be very mindful that you are the ones that hold life in your womb. You are the ones who give men that special touch. I know we always say, we hear people say on podcasts that, women need men, and we really do. We need men to protect us. If war broke out today, I definitely would want a man to protect me. If somebody's trying to harm me, I know I don't have the physical strength to ward off a man, and even some negative, ungodly energies. I don't have it within me to deal with that. I need a man. Additionally, or moreover, men also need women. They need us to inspire them, because your femininity and your softness, your beauty makes you a muse for him. You inspire him. You incentivize him. Everything a man does is for the attention of a lady. So know your power, ladies. Know your power, please, and stop freely giving it away. Only give it to the man that's been vetted properly and proven himself as being worthy enough to enter into your space, your yoni space, and worthy enough to absorb your energy. Good night, family. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Go and make this a great night. Sleep well and have safe travels in your dreams. Bye-bye.